Well, we're going to jump right into God's Word. If you have a Bible, if you'll open up to Matthew chapter 5, you can listen along, or you can grab one of the Bibles in front of you. If you grab one of the Bibles in the chair in front of you, it's page 683. Page 683. Even if you didn't grow up in the church, you might have heard of the Sermon on the Mount. This is the Sermon on the Mount. And Christ, actually, in this discourse, in this what he shares here, probably something that he shared more than once. He shared many times in different places. But he really kind of challenges the view of if you would, religion of the day, and there's a shift here. And he starts out with, blessed are the, and he goes through a list of poor in spirit, those who mourn, the meek, those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, the merciful, pure in heart, and so forth. And the interesting thing is Jesus is saying, he's calling out folks. He said, these folks are blessed. They're going to receive something from God. And he doesn't give them the list that they would expect. They were expecting a list like, blessed are those who go to temple. Blessed are those who faithfully pray hours a day. Blessed are those who give so much of their whatever. And Jesus kind of says, you know what? He goes to the heart of the matter. He skips over religion, and he goes to people's hearts and says, these folks are blessed. And when he finishes that, he first of all, he's captured the crowd. There's thousands of people that are gathering while he's preaching this, and what the people love about this is he's talking about them. They're used to going to one of these talks by a rabbi, walking away feeling a little left out. He must be talking about somebody else. But when he gives this list, these broken, non-religious, simple-minded folks feel like, wow, you mean God's got a blessing for me? And in the midst of this, he has a challenge for them. Starting in verse 13, Matthew chapter 5. He says to them, he says to you and I, you are the salt of the earth. It's an emphatic statement. He's telling you are the salt of the earth. And now he's talking about those those that he referred to in the beginning. So he's not talking about everyone. He's specifically talking in that context of those that he just said, blessed are those who hunger and thirst after God. In our context of those of you who have followed or have decided to follow Jesus and allow him to do in you what you cannot do to yourself. This will be his emphatic statement to you. You are salt. But, he says, if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It can't, and neither can salt lose its saltiness, because it's by definition salt. It's a theoretical statement. It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled by men. Salt's been used for many different purposes, but its main purpose is to keep you healthy. You need a certain amount of salt. And by God's grace, not only did he design you to need salt, but by God's grace, he designed you where you desire salt. Because it makes food taste better. There's a lot of new tastes and flavors and things that we have developed, especially in the West, but for most of time, for most of history, the number one thing to enhance taste was salt. And what Jesus is saying here is that you are by design the kind of person, or you should be the kind of person, that those who are going through a bland life should all of a sudden feel like, wow, this makes life a little bit better. Makes another emphatic statement here. He says, you are the light of the world. It's a statement. It's emphatic. You are the light of the world. Then he does the same thing. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. In other words, if a city sitting on the top of the hill, everyone knows it's there because the lights at night can be seen from all around. Neither do people light a lamp. They didn't have electricity, so they would light a lamp for light. It's the only light they had. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. That would be ridiculous. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light, what? To everyone in the house. When you light a lamp, a candle, you put it high, and it spreads the light out. If you put it low, the chairs or the bed or whatever it is blocks the light, so you put it up high. So it lights up the entire room. Remembering again that in this day and time, houses didn't have 12 rooms or 4 rooms. It was pretty much one room. And so it would light up every nook and cranny, from the kitchen to the living room to the bedroom. And what he says is that this is you. You are the light of the world. And you weren't designed to be hidden away. You weren't designed for that. And he brings it all together in this last statement, 16, in the same way. So, as salt is supposed to bring flavor and make something bland worth eating, as light is to bring hope in the darkness, as well as able to see your way around in the first place, in the same way, you should let your light shine before men, that's mankind, that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. In other words, your life, you should live your life in such a way that when other people come up against your life, it should make a difference. It should make an impact. That is, as people go through the blandness of their life, you know what Henry David Thoreau said, most men and women live lives of quiet desperation. Their lives of quiet desperation, of the grind of the day, of the grind of the years passing, when it rubs up against someone who belongs to Jesus, they should find flavor. They should find hope. They should all of a sudden, what was darkness was just to kind of go through it. There should be light. And what Jesus is saying is that's the way you were designed. He's not even saying go out and try to do that. He's saying that's God's purpose for you. That's in your, if you would, spiritual DNA, to make a difference. But not just to make a difference in a way where someone says, hey, I'm sure glad I met that person. But your good deeds, the saltiness of your life, the light of your life should so impact people that when they see your life, they understand why you're doing what you're doing, the motivation behind what you're doing, and the result is they give praise to your Father in heaven. And this is the way the world, not just the church, or in this context, their Jewish brothers and sisters, but this is the way the world, who may not even follow God, but generally the world should rub up against our lives and go, thank whatever version of God I have in my head. And even if I don't believe in God, I'm glad they do. Because their belief made an impact, a positive, light, salt impact in my life. That is what Christ is challenging to do. He says, I understand you may consider yourself poor. I understand you might consider yourself lowly. I understand you might consider yourself not very religious, but you want to know more of God. But know this, no matter how poor, lowly, and struggling you are designed to make a difference. You are designed to have an impact on this world. We've been going we're at the tail end of a series where we want to dream. We want to dream the way God dreams. That's the heart of the whole series. Is to dream God's impossible mission for us. God's mission impossible. To replace our dreams with His dream. To replace our agenda with His agenda. To replace our will with His will. And we've been going through each of those letters. And the D, right, stood for dream. That's the first step, is to begin to understand that we were designed for this purpose. And as long as I'm pursuing my dream, my agenda, and my will, I'm saltless, lightless, And inevitably that road is going to end to the quiet desperation that most lives end up. And we have enough proof. We just recently, one of the most beloved, famous people who was about as well off as you could possibly be well off, was so depressed he took his own life. What are you pursuing? And God forbid that you get it. Because that road doesn't end up where you think it ends up. But God's dream for you is that you would come to the point where you begin to dream the way He dreams for your life, because He designed you. He created you. He knitted you together for a specific purpose. Begin to dream His dream. And we looked at different aspects of that dream, and one of them is reconciliation. We are all called to be ambassadors, representatives of God, not representatives of His law, not representatives of moral purity. We're called to do those things, but that's not what we're called to represent. We're called to represent His forgiveness, His love, His grace and mercy. Those other things might follow, but we are to be ambassadors of saying, no matter where you are, no matter how bad it is, no matter what you believe, no matter where you are on the political spectrum, no matter who you've beaten and what you voted for or against, it doesn't matter. God loves you, and Christ paid the price. So whatever that gap is, it has done nothing through Jesus. And we talked about those who begin to dream God's dream. Issues of equality and justice become important to them. That those that other people overlook, we see. That those who don't have, we live to help provide for them. Issues of equality and justice are close to our heart. And then last week we talked about the fact that if we want to realize God's dream for us, we need to begin to move towards. None of us are going to do it right now, this year, or the next decade. But we need to move towards, step by step, being all in. Slowly giving God all of our lives. Not just our Sunday morning, not just our Bible quiet time, not just our money, but slowly but surely, all in. And that leads us to what we were talking about today. Make an impact. When you begin to dream God's dream, you begin, see, here's the American, okay? This is the Western, and actually maybe even this is really human philosophy. It's just best realized in the American dream. The American dream is that you collect and you use as much salt as you can. That's why most of you have never been to a doctor to tell you to eat more salt. In some countries, doctors actually tell their patients that. Not in our culture. It's eat less salt. We are consumers of light. We are collectors of light. Fundamentally, Make an Impact says we don't go get salt. We don't go get light. We are the salt. We are the light. That's a fundamental shift. It's a fundamental shift. And to make an impact is to stop pursuing it and to become it. Oops. And to become it. That's what it means to make an impact. Let me give you a visual for it. What's the difference between the right and the left? Water. Same environment, sunshine, air. Same environment. The difference between the right and the left is water. We are to be water in a parched land. That should be the result of our lives. Your neighborhood should be greener because you're there. The place that you work should be greener because you're there. Your family should be greener because you're there. Where you go, it should spiritually, physically, emotionally be greener. You are called to the Bay Area because there are not many places, at least in the United States, that are more parched, spiritually parched, than the Bay Area. We always rank in about the top 5 places in all the United States of least spiritually connected. This is a parched land. But what God doesn't want us to do is to hang out in our little greenhouses we call churches and Bible studies and whatever. He says, no, I put you in a parched land. You're the water. Stop being a water collector and start watering. Because that's what I designed you for, to make an impact. And this could be large, and it could be small. For me, one of the things that I have done for several years now, I joined a thing called Project Cornerstone. Project Cornerstone is a group of people who were looking at kind of the trends of where our youth are going and felt a little nervous, and they did all kinds of research, and they found out there's a certain amount of virtues or assets, they call them, that youth need when they're growing up in order to be healthy. It's amazing because they basically discovered the Bible, but they didn't know that. And so they say, we need to get these assets into our youth. And so they designed a program, the primary tool being reading of books in schools. And so there's about 30, 40 or so different schools all over Santa Clara Valley where volunteers go in once a month and they read these different books and they highlight a virtue. And so I've been reading now for 8 years. I started, I did about 6 or 7 years in my kids' elementary school. We were there a long time with 4 kids. And then starting last year, my kids were all out of elementary school. I started reading at Bishop Elementary School there. And going in and just simply reading a book. And I remember one particular time, I went into a class. I've been reading there for a year or two. And Mr. M was the teacher. And Mr. M is well known throughout the school. He's a really good teacher, but more than that, he's the guy that plans a lot of the special events, and you just could tell he loves the students and loves the school, and they love him. And I went in, and they were already in the middle of something, and I forgot how it came up, but for whatever reason, this time Mr. M kind of shared with the kids and with me how he became a school teacher in the first place. And he was talking about how he used to work at Safeway. That was his career. And he worked his way up into management. He was running a store. He was doing fine. And one day, I guess, a family came in with kids, and it just got on his heart. You know what? I want to make a difference in kids' lives. And in the middle of his life, with his career well on his way, he goes back to school, gets his teaching credential, and he's teaching elementary school now. And then he shares a story, and then I open up the book. That day was a book called Thank You, Mr. Falker. And I began to read this book. In the beginning of the story, it's about this girl who loves to read. Her family is excited, and they teach her that reading, opens up the world to you, and she just can't wait to read herself. And then she gets into school, and the whole middle part of this book is this challenge that she goes through when she hits school. It turns out the book never uses the word dyslexia. I think that's the word. But that's what she has. And the heart of it is this. She struggles, and by the time she is in the 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, she is convinced she is stupid. She hates school. Hates it. It's a bitter experience with all the teasing and embarrassment. And then one year, this new teacher, Mr. Falker, shows up. He treats her a little bit different than the other teachers. He stops some of the teasing by the kids, but more importantly, he's the one who figures out what's going on and tells her she's not stupid. She just sees things differently. And he helps her see things in a way where slowly but surely, after months and months and months, she begins to read. And then the last page of the book, it says, the little girl's, in her voice says, I hadn't seen Mr. Falker for 30 years. And I ran into him at some benefit or something like that. And I went up to him and I said, "Hi, Mr. Falker." And he had trouble at first placing me. And I explained who I was. And he said, "Oh, it's you. How are you?" And she says, "I'm fine." And he says to her, "So what are you doing?" And she says, "Oh, Mr. Falker, I write children's books." As I'm finishing this, tears begin to roll down my face. Tears are rolling down Mr. M's face. The kids are like, "What?" But we understood that Mr. Falker had made an impact. And I also understood that was Mr. M's very own story. He might make a lot less, have a lot less in retirement, but it was a big deal. It was a big deal. And when I dream and I pray for our church, I dream that we more and more become a big deal. Now, I don't know what God is going to do, but I do dream of what he could do. I want to just share with you just some of the things that, as I dream of what could be. You know, right now we have a very small but important tutoring program. And we're mostly tutoring really young kids. But I think of all the thousands and thousands of dollars that are spent every year by Bay Area parents that want to give their kids a jump start on tutoring. And I think, what if God captured someone's heart? And this one little thing just developed in tutoring from kindergarten all the way up through high school, of the kind of quality tutoring that would seriously put you ahead of the class and well position you into college. And the biggest requirement in order to get in the tutoring program is you can't afford it. I dream of our boxing program that we partner with the Sunnyvale Police Department on. You know, that was started not just to give kids somewhere to go after school, and it's very successful in that, but it was really started in the heart to do some leadership training, and they've struggled with getting there. But I just dream of their heart being captured and just saying, you know what, we want to take what is started there and begin to build on that, and raise up leaders who understand, youth who understand, I'm receiving now, but plant the seeds, the leadership seeds of I'm supposed to take what I'm receiving and give it away, and become a contributor in my community, to become a contributor in wherever it is that God would put me. I see in day and age where we see kids who raise up, whose parents can't afford it and don't have the time because they're working hard, but we identify those kids that got potential. And not only give the tutoring, but we help them with college scholarships, and someone begins to dream, what would it look like if we gave them another picture of what success was? It wasn't just day labor or just getting by, but you know, what if we could get them in businesses where they could have a meaningful internship, have opportunities that they normally wouldn't have? What a difference that would make. If God got a hold of our hearts and said, you know, this is crazy. I belong to a company, and we moved from point A to point B, and we just gave away, threw away, demolished furniture that was 4, 5, 6 years old, and bought all new stuff. And then I go over to Haiti, and to them, that furniture we said was old and useless. To them, that's like good stuff that could be used for decades. That's not even available in their country. And what would it look like to begin to partner resource-rich Silicon Valley with areas around the world? Not just a handout, but just really a hand up. This is already stirring, but I foresee a day where people continue to have their hearts wrenched with human trafficking, not that just happening in Thailand and around the world, but that we come to understand that in the wonderful resources that we have in the Bay Area, Human trafficking is alive and well here. You don't have to go anywhere. Human trafficking follows the money. It is here. And our hearts should be broken, and someone needs to step up and provide a way out for these gals through another home that needs to open up and education to kind of say, no, this is not a faceless. It's not just part of human nature. This is abuse. This is another form of slavery. I foresee a day where someone's like, you know what? It's interesting. We have a hunger problem, but we also have an image problem. What would it look like to open up a restaurant where people who could paid a little bit more, and people who couldn't could go volunteer at a nonprofit organization or a church or somewhere, and they would get a coupon for the little work they did, and they could come to the restaurant and get served a real meal at a real table for something that they did. What would it look like for us? You know, we can't help all the homeless, but what would it look like for us to open up a home and take the handful of people, you know, slowly but surely, and just say, hey, here's a safe place to live. Here's the education to find a job. Here are the tools that you need in the time, you know, 1, 2, or 3 years that you can build and restart a new life. Rather than just surviving, but actually thriving. I've many times turned down. Everybody and his brother wants to use our facility for a school, and we've turned them down over and over again. But if somebody came to me and says, you know what? I want to start a private school, but we won't take anyone who can afford it. We only want to look for those students that can't afford it, but would excel in this kind of environment. If we could do it in a heartbeat, we'd have that school here. I just don't want to provide another place for wealthy and church people to send their kids away from the world. And it may not be a big thing, it may be a little thing. It may be the peacekeeper in your family, the one person who refuses to take a side or not forgive Uncle so-and-so for what he did, or whatever that may be. It may be something in your neighborhood. It may be something in your office. But God's calling us to make a difference. Now, I want to pause here for a second and just, some of you, God's going to stir something. Some of you are to be leaders of these ideas, or ideas I haven't even mentioned. These are just all my things. And let me just tell you what I don't want. If you have an idea, don't come tell me as if it's an idea that I should do. You know why we're not doing these things? Because God's already put on my heart what I'm supposed to do, and I'm doing it right here. If we're going to do these things, it's because God's going to move more salt and more light out here. But I will also tell you this. There will be a few people that will start that are entrepreneurs, spiritual entrepreneurs. But there's many more of us that are going to come alongside those folks to make those things happen. And that is just as important. Groups are very important. Just for fun, you guys know that a group of birds is called a flock, right? You have a group of birds. It's called a flock. If you have a group of porcupines, I love this one. It's called a prickle. That's a prickle. Sorry for the image, but this is a good one too. If you have a group of cockroaches, it's called an intrusion. If you have a group of owls, it's called a parliament. Notice it's not a Congress. If you have a group of vultures, you're going to love this. It's called a committee. This one's even better. If you have a group of alligators, one of the official terms, you can look this up, it's called a congregation. And one of my favorites that I really want to kind of camp out on is if you have a group of rhinos, it's called a crash. It's called a crash. And it's apt because rhinos can only see in front of them. They can run about 30 miles an hour, but they can only see barely 20 feet or less in front of them. So when a rhino starts running, if you're in front of it, he's going to hit you. Or he's going to hit whatever it is. Because there's not a whole lot of time to veer. And so saying crash of a group of rhinos is very appropriate. And as you can imagine, if a rhino hits something, it's going to make an impact. And you just have to excuse me, you're going to learn a lot today. But I want to explain just a little bit about why there's such an impact. And there's actually a formula for that. It's P equals M times V. It's in your notes here. And so let me explain that because I didn't understand it either. I just, I got it from somewhere else to look smart. P is momentum. Momentum equals mass times velocity. So because a rhino has so much momentum, it makes a huge impact. And mass is obvious. Mass is the amount of matter in an object. So if you look at a rhino, there's a lot of mass there. If it hits you, it's going to hurt. Some of you may have had a puppy. They run into things all the time. It's not usually that bad because there's not a whole lot of mass there. But there's a second part of the equation, and that is velocity. Now, velocity is more than just speed. It's also direction. So think of a team of horses pulling a wagon, all right? You have mass, and you can have speed, but if one horse is pulling a little bit this way, and the other horse is pulling a little bit this way, it's not going to go as fast as it could. The velocity will be lower. The velocity is higher if the direction is the same. So you have momentum when you have a mass times velocity. When you have a large number of people, if you would, heading in the same direction. Martin Luther King, if you looked up people who made a difference, chances are on almost every list you're going to find Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on that list. But the truth is that if there wasn't people who marched with him, if he didn't have other leaders around him, if Rosa Parks hadn't not given up her seat, he wouldn't have made an impact at all. It's not like he was the only one to speak the message he spoke. Many people had spoken that message. He's not the only one with that conviction. But at a certain time and place, when he spoke, it created more and more people began to join. But it wasn't just the fact that they had mass. It was that their message became the same, and they began to march in step in the same direction. And that momentum had an impact that a lot of other movements that started the same way fizzled out on. And for many of us, God is might raise up a point person, but in order for that to have an impact, in order for whether it's tutoring or helping the homeless or Gateway Neighborhood Center, in order for that to have an impact, it's going to take mass plus velocity, us all heading in the same direction. Then you have momentum, and then you have a solid impact. And that is what God has called us to do. Some of us are going to be wave creators, but that only will make a difference if there's others of us that kind of stand arm in arm. Many of you know, because we've been talking about this now for the last 3 weeks, the Gateway Neighborhood Center is one of those stories. It's one of those stories where 4 years ago, folks were sitting around going, what if? And by faith, they stood up and said, let's make this happen. And a mass of people started going in the same direction, and Gateway Neighborhood Center was birthed. That organization I was telling you about, Project Cornerstone, they gather once a year, and they celebrate. I've been to a few of these now. And they celebrate where these different virtues or assets have been really showed up. And they give out about 2 or 3 awards every year to individuals or groups that epitomize what they're trying to accomplish. And believe it or not, the challenge team for Sunnyvale was honored for that. And the center of what well, I don't want to tell you. They prepared a video to kind of show what was going on. Watch this.
It needs a spark. I think what we do here at the Sunnyvale Challenge Team is a spark to innovation, is a spark to creativity and compassion to steer those kids and families away from gangs.
5 years ago, when the Sunnyvale Challenge Team came together, one of our dreams and visions was a youth center. We collaborated and came together to open the doors in 2011 for Gateway Neighborhood Center.
Gateway Neighborhood Center is a second home for me.
Graduating is like about 3 years ago away now, and Gateway has helped me get there.
I want to go to a 4-year college or university and graduate with a bachelor's degree.
Well, I already have this leadership in me. I want to bring this to the college.
It's been very important for me, for my family, because my kids, they have a place to go and hang out with their friends. They help with homework. A lot of parents, we don't speak English very well, and we need help with that too. So I'm really thankful that this is happening.
I like Gateway because there's lots of sports you could do. I go to tutoring to help me with my homework.
The challenge team has been incredibly important to us because we've been able to leverage resources within our community to better serve our students. So these partnerships have just really helped our students and helped us knock down the barriers to learning and really support our students and families.
There's pretty much not a meeting that I go to that I don't get tears in my eyes watching the passion and the compassion that people have.
And I'd like to thank Project Cornerstone, Reed Myers, and Doug Moretto for all their support, and all the individuals and organizations in the area who come together and dedicate themselves to creating positive, vibrant communities for our youth.
Thank you, Gateway and Project Cornerstone.
Yes. As you saw, the challenge team is made up of city leaders. It's made up of the police department. But the center of the impact that they were celebrating was Gateway Neighborhood Center. That was the center of the impact. And think of the citywide, the pride of what's going on in the city is because of the few people sitting in this room. That's pretty amazing when you think of the thousands of people that live in the city and the fact that it's a unique pretty much to Sunnyvale. There's not many cities who can say that they got something like that going on. And it's because God has used, once again, us broken, struggling human beings to do an amazing work, to make an amazing impact. And I just got to tell you, to me, it's not just about a future. I celebrate. That's what God is doing in and among us. I mean, I look around. I just, I look at the different faces, and I know what God is doing. I mean, we're in the jails because of God working through us. We're working with lower income. We're working with the homeless. I can just go on and on and on of how God are using different individuals that are sitting here right now to make an impact, and He's just begun. So there's a couple things I want you to do. First of all, I want you to go before the Lord and just say, God, again, is there one thing? Don't listen to the enemy. He's going to bring 20 things and try to overload you. But is there one thing where I'm missing that I can begin to shift from a salt and light consumer to being salt and light? Would you open my eyes to that? And I always follow it up with, and then give me the strength to do what you show me. Because a lot of times He shows me stuff, I'm like, is there something else? You need strength. But the second thing I would like you to do is, I'd like you to come and join us this evening. Now, most of you probably know what I'm talking about if you've been to a Gateway Unleashed event. And this evening at 6 o'clock, we're going to gather. We're going to have dinner together. It's provided. You just have to show up. And we're going to celebrate what God has done through Gateway and different things that we've been doing over the last 40 some odd days together. And I would just invite you to come and celebrate with us because God has done amazing, amazing things. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you're still welcome to come. There's a folder out here called Gateway Unleashed. You can just grab one of those. It has all the information in it about what Gateway Unleashed. And I would invite you to come. And I just want to give you a heads up if for whatever reason you've not been to a Gateway Unleashed event. One of the things we're going to do this evening is we're going to take commitment cards for those who want to support the ministry of Gateway Neighborhood Center. Okay? But if you're new, please come. We're not going to go around and make sure everyone turns a card in. It's so much more than that. Just come and hang out with us. That's why we're not doing the picnic this month, because our family time together is tonight. So just come and listen and enjoy, and that will be enough. All right? If you'll stand up, I'd like to ask God's blessing as we go out. This is what I would like God to bless you with this week. I hope you crash. I hope you have spiritual momentum and you make an impact and that you get addicted to it. And you understand that it's Him and not you. Go walk in the dust of our Master, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. We'll see y'all next week.